Welcome to The Real Deal, everyone. I'm Christina Arangio. In this show, we break down real-life concerns with meaningful conversation and get some valuable advice from Dr. Julie Morrison. She's a local psychologist, founder and director of HPA Live Well Albany. Julie, thanks for coming in again.
Absolutely.
You know, we had a great conversation last week, and one of the things I said that I kind of want to share with everybody as to the point of our show, our goal here, is really just to better navigate this crazy, messy, beautiful thing we call life, because it's hard. And it's okay that it's hard. But having these conversations can really help people out. Even us, right? Even talking it through.
Yep.
So we have a great topic this week. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we want to talk about that and facing your fears and getting those checkups. But before we do that, we started something last week, Julie, where we have a real challenge. And our conversation last week was just the kids are back to the routine. We're in this very busy mode right now, and we feel overwhelmed. So what can we do so that we feel like we have some quality time and have some time for us? And you had a couple of thoughts on what people could do.
Right. Well, we had the idea of, how just for the week, right? Yeah. How are you able to fill your bucket? And then how can you carve out that quality time? So how'd you do?
Okay, we were talking. Yeah. I feel like that I didn't think about it ahead of time. Like, ooh, Julie said I need to fill my bucket. I did something that I enjoyed, and then I remembered our conversation, and I said, oh my God, I went and I got mums. I love the flowers. I love decorating the front porch, the back porch, all the fall stuff. Yeah. And I so often put it off because, well, I got too much to do. I got too much. Right. Like, you know what? I am going to take this half hour and pick these out and put them on the deck, and I loved it. So that's how I filled my bucket. Awesome. And then in terms of carving out quality time, that was the other, right? So I was laughing about this. I'm like, does this count? Because I basically watched a marathon on TV with my son, but it's something that he loves, and he's always asking me, hey, sit down and watch TV with me. And you know how often you feel guilty? Like, oh, I will. I just got to do the dishes. I sat down and I watched The Thundermans, which is some show on Nickelodeon that he loves. We watched it for, a couple of hours, and I was proud of myself that I sat down for that long and took the time with him, and he loved it. Yeah. So I did my best.
That's awesome.
How about you?
I'll be honest, same thing. I didn't think about it. And I think that tells us all, right? You got to put in the effort and really, create habits. But, given that it was a holiday weekend, I think what I really tried to focus on was I could get all my stuff done and then take a breath. And, sometimes just accomplishing that list of things is actually filling, is kind of calming things down, filling your bucket. I think the quality time came because I was able to be efficient and do that. Yeah. The funny thing is I'm noticing that we both used weekends. Right? And so making sure that we find time during the week too.
Right.
So
no, that's a really good point. You shouldn't just wait for Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
You feel like you finally have that moment to breathe. But really, we got to make time during the week. All right. There's so many.
See, we're always a work in progress, aren't we?
That's for sure. Yeah. Okay, so heavy topic, right?
Yeah.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's wonderful that they do this. We were talking about this. Even the kids learn about it in school. People are wearing their pink, doing what they can. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed at some point in their lifetime. This is personal, especially for you, Julie. And if you don't mind, I think it would be really good for you to explain why this is something you take so seriously.
Absolutely. So my mom is a breast cancer survivor. So she had breast cancer at age 53. And I actually have a cousin who also has breast cancer, is in recovery from, or is, I should say, in remission from. But I will tell you that, having that strike your family twice definitely does,
wake up call.
It does. And I've also, had multiple people who I'm friendly with who also kind of rug pulled right out from underneath them and diagnosed with breast cancer. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. I have a close girlfriend who has triple negative breast cancer, and so we're kind of going through that journey with her. Yeah. My grandmother had breast cancer, but she was diagnosed very late, so in her 70s, and for whatever reason, that is a separate classification. Yes. So I mention it, and so it's not as much a concern, but it's still something you mention when you go to those doctor's appointments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we have to manage the fear, especially, this is so close to you.
Sure.
How do we encourage others to manage the fear? Let's say you're even good about keeping up with your appointments and you make those checkups. Sure. But just even going for your mammogram,
Yeah.
There's fear.
Right. So say you're good at it. Say you're good about it. You've done it before. So there's other anxieties. We can talk about that. But, I think what we want to recognize is that every time you go for any kind of imaging, and obviously we're talking about related to breast cancer today, but any kind of imaging, it's like I say to my kids, every time you ask me a question, the answer could be yes or it could be no, right? We know that from that imaging, we're going to get an answer. We're going to get an answer that we're okay right now, or we're going to get an answer that there might be something that we need to address. And so I think the fear of the unknown, but the anticipatory worry of, but what if something is wrong this time? I've gotten away with it. Right? But what if something's wrong this time? What will that mean? And I think that people become very fearful, and they also can become avoidant, because who wants to do the scary thing? Right. It's normal to avoid, right? So.
And how do you not go down the rabbit hole, too, of, well, what if? And, it's only a matter of time, right? I mean, unfortunately, that goes in my head a lot, too. The schedules are busy. We push ourselves so much. You're burning the candle at both ends. Yeah. And 100% honesty, there's many times where I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, I just had 4 hours sleep again. I mean, how long will it be before something happens? Right. Especially when you have serious illness in your life. Sure. I lost my mom to a terminal illness, cancer, but it was a different type, acute myeloid leukemia. My husband has faced some very serious health challenges. So for me, it's like, it's right here. It's right here. And it's certainly not just me or you. Right. Everybody knows somebody. Right. So how do we not go to worst case scenario?
Well, I think the problem is that a lot of times with the anxiety that we have, we're not naming the worry that we have, right? So yes, there's the worry around diagnosis, but there's really the worry around it is also, how would my life change? What would happen? All of these fears. Right. And I think that sometimes with the anxiety that we experience, if you're able to spend a little bit more time talking about that anxiety specifically, it stops sneaking up on you. So what happens with anxiety is, if I worry about something, say, I have this pain. I wonder if it's something. Yeah. But I'm too anxious to go have it looked at.
It'll go away.
It'll be okay.
Don't worry about it.
But then I think about the pain again, and then I think about it, and I think about it. Every time I think about it, my anxiety is going to build each time. Am I worried about the pain and what it means? Or am I worried about the pain and what it means and what that potential could do? And I think that a little bit of exploration around, well, listen, okay, if that mammogram came back and there was something you needed to address, you're being seen, they are catching this, you would have treatment, right? What do you know? Identifying the things that we know to combat the fears. Right. This is what I would do. I have a friend. I have a doctor who I rely on. I have family that would help with this or that I'm worried about. My job is really supportive. Whatever those things are.
That are positive.
Exactly. But taking those fears that are such a cloud and turning them into something that help sort of the facts sort of combat those fears, so that you feel more armed, that God forbid this come back negatively. Right. Or, telling me that there's a problem, I feel more capable of addressing the fallout.
There's power in being proactive, right? And that kind of leads us to our second point here. So when you are proactive and you take that leap and say, I'm going to make that appointment, I'm going to get that mammogram, I don't know. I know for me personally, that's step one, and it makes me feel better, even though I may be stressing the appointment itself.
Right. Well, so listen, the thing is, we have to remember, just because you don't have a picture of it, right? That's what a mammogram is. Just because you don't have a picture of it doesn't mean that thing isn't there. So if we can find some power in attacking this in the sense of, let me know if there's even something there to worry about, that does, if you choose to reframe it that way, give you power. Now, that doesn't mean that while you're waiting for those results, you're not going to be afraid. And I've said this to you, I have literally a degree in calming down. And if you think that I can stay calm during those moments, I cannot always.
Of course not. I mean, you're so affected with your mom and everything.
Well, and the interesting thing, too, and I think we want to bring this up, and I know, this is probably its own topic of, we all have those portals. And a lot of times people go for their imaging, they go for tests, they go for whatever, and all of a sudden that chime will ding, and your portal is full with the answers. And your doctor may not have even seen that yet. And you sit there and you think, this holds the answers to my my fears. And there is a lot of anticipatory worry in opening up those portals and recognizing that sometimes setting those boundaries is also okay. That information is in there, but that's medical information. If you don't feel ready to read through something that are words that you've never seen before and you're going to have to use Google to understand, maybe take a beat and call your doctor's office, have them review it and let you know if there's a problem. You do have power in how this goes.
It's a really important point. It may not be the most comfortable exam. We're being 100% honest here. But really, when you compare it to something that could be much worse, because the whole point of a mammogram is to detect it early so that hopefully you get the treatment you need if there is something there, right? So yeah, it's pressing on your chest. It hurts for a moment. You hold your breath, and it's over like that. And it's really, the harder part, like you said, is waiting for the result.
Well, and what you just did right there was walk through sort of somebody who's listening to this, what happens. Now, remember, so there's people who are anxious who haven't gone and gotten a mammogram. There's people
they're not the right age yet.
They're not the right age yet, or they're getting ready to go get their first mammogram. And the first thing they want to know is, what happens, right? But they may not be comfortable telling someone that they have those questions. Ask your doctor, ask a friend, ask someone who's had this before, and ask them in terms of somebody maybe even who's been to the same place you're going to go, because places are different, right? The machines are very similar. They're all doing the same work, but maybe you sit in a waiting room and someone comes out and gives you your results. Maybe you sit in that and they say you'll get a letter and we'll let you know if there's a problem. But be able to get the facts ahead of time so you go in informed, so that some of those fears of, oh, well, nobody came to get me yet. What does that mean? Does that mean something? I'm waiting here. Someone told me that I need more pictures. You know, that's a terrifying thing for someone. You're waiting in the waiting room and they come back and they say, we need more pictures. I had that. I was like, I'm okay. I'm just going to pass out real quick and then I'll be with you, right?
It's terrifying.
And it's terrifying. But I wish someone had said to me, that happens a lot.
Yes.
You might have moved around a little. You might have not stayed still or took a deep breath or whatever. And so normalizing the process and the experience and finding your people who know that stuff.
Right, so you know more going in. A lot of times with a mammogram, you also need an ultrasound. It all depends on your tissue. If you have dense tissue, which apparently happens more when you're younger, and then they're less dense as you get older, but that's something to keep in mind. So a lot of times they will say, you're going to need an ultrasound as well. Don't panic. In New York State, they let you know now in your letter, oh, you have dense tissue. So the goal is that you speak up to your doctor, be proactive and tell your doctor, I know that I have dense tissue according to the notes that I have from my last mammogram. I'm going to need both, and be proactive in that too. You speak up because they may miss it. We got a lot more, I think. I think we're getting to a point where we got to take a quick break here. So much more to share, so make sure you stay with us because we're going to talk about being proactive even if you're not of age yet to get a mammogram. So we're back in a moment. Welcome back to The Real Deal, everyone. Christina Arangio here with Dr. Julie Morrison, local psychologist, having a really important conversation this week about breast cancer awareness, facing our fears. We talked about, taking that step, getting your mammogram if you're of age, and you know this, if you have a family history, Julie, it may start before, now it depends on which, barometer you're looking at, but the American Cancer Society says start at age 40 every year, unless you have family history and you may start earlier. So for you, this was something on your radar even earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you have to get guidance from your doctor. Make sure they know your history, the whole thing, and make sure you know your history. Make sure you know your family's history.
And that is the whole piece about being proactive. So we said being proactive on the end where you're getting the checkups and make sure you're doing that. Even if you're before that age, I was just having this conversation, we do our Women's Health Wednesday segment every week on the air. And one of the doctors, the OBGYN, was sharing with me that very often, if you are not getting a self-check, if it's not time for a mammogram, you need to be the one to speak up to either your primary care physician or hopefully your OBGYN is checking you over. But let's say you haven't been to the OBGYN, even though you should be going, at least for that yearly physical, say, you know what, I need a self-check. And they will check you over because what's happening and they're seeing is that breast cancer, there's been a slight increase in women who are younger, who are not of age to be screened. So if you're not getting a check or doing a self-check, well, we need to start doing that too.
Well, one of the things I like about asking your professional, right, your GYN or your primary care about a check is for them to also teach you what to do.
I know.
So the
It's hard
one
to
thing, you know, when we worry about, you know, even specifically to say health anxiety, for example, do you know what you're feeling? Do you know is this something to be concerned about or not to? What are you looking for? How regularly should that happen? Things like that. Because what we also know is that sometimes those things build the anxiety, where there's sort of that obsessive sort of checking. Because now I've become concerned and I don't even know what I'm looking for. So am I a real good assessor? So making sure you know what you're doing.
And different times of the month, and I'm sure you've heard this too, it may feel differently when you're checking yourself.
Right.
I think I was maybe 20 and I was at an OBGYN appointment and she literally put something in front of me and said, there is like a makeshift lump here. I want you to feel around so you know what. That was so valuable to me. I've never had that again. And I'm actually amazed that more doctors' offices don't do that.
You know, I actually had that in graduate school, which is very bizarre. But yes, and so I remember learning that and thinking, no one's ever told me that before, and I was in my early 20s. I didn't know what I was talking about.
Was it very hard, the lump?
It was,
I couldn't believe it was almost like a pebble.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. Now, I'm not saying if it's not like a pebble, you're good. You need to inquire if you have anything that's different that you're noticing.
Absolutely.
But I thought that was incredibly helpful.
Well, and get the leadership around that, because the other thing is that we also know that there's a trickle down of information. So as we learn what we have to do to take care of ourselves, we then are teaching others about what we need to do to take care of ourselves. The same way we talk about, say, nutrition or exercise or whatever. You got to watch where you learn it, right? And so, you know, I have an obligation, in my opinion, to tell my daughter what I know. Right? But to tell her the right thing and to make sure I'm vetting that information to make sure that I feel confident that this is a really important thing that she learns the right way.
Yeah, we were talking about that as well, that if we don't set an example, then how are our children, you know, our daughters going to follow suit? Well, you know, I never heard about you getting a mammogram or you never talked about it. So I remember so well, my mother was amazing about always getting those checkups. And usually she would tell me after. And I remember thinking when I was younger, like, okay. She'd be like, oh, I just got the results from my mammogram. Everything's great. You know, probably because she was nervous and she was happy to get it off her chest.
Yes.
My choice of words there. Yep.
Yeah. Well done. Nice.
But I think that, you know, she felt better about it, but it also signaled to me like, okay, note to self, that's something you do when you get older. And my sister and I have always been very good, not just about ourselves, but your family, making sure whether it's the kids for different appointments and your husband and oh my gosh, with everything I deal with my husband's health challenges, it's constant and he needs constant screens and there's constant anxiety there. But I feel better when I make those appointments than the unknown.
Absolutely. And I think that that's where you find your power. None of us can predict the future. But as I've had other people, you know, clinicians say to me, because I go for a lot of imaging because I have a twin sister and the two of us are high risk, right? The two, which is nice because the two of us together can say, well, did you have, you know, did they say this? Did they do this? You know,
have each other.
Right. And I think it's really important to be able to have those conversations, hold ourselves accountable, and also know that this is what we expect, you know, that this is sort of normalized for us. But because we're high risk, we feel obligated also to share that information with our kids, sort of preemptive, you know, the way that I look at it with my kids now that they're older. You know, I mean, I've got a 14-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter.
They can handle this.
My job is to say to them, I cannot promise you that this will not happen. But my goal is to make sure that it's caught early. And that's why I go to this or to that. And you know, and they'll ask me, you know, how did this go? Because I actually go down to the city to get imaging. And so because I leave, they know I'm not home and they'll check and how was your appointment? And I'll say to them, the appointment went well. And there's no reason to believe that, you know, there's going to be a concern. I'll let you know.
Right.
And
you don't have to give everything, just give them enough.
Not everything, but I think also the goal is that they also know I'm not going to lie to them. And that I say to them, I do this because then I know we'll figure it out.
You bring up a really interesting point because I've dealt with this myself with my daughter who is 19 and with, again, not breast cancer, but with concerns about my husband. We've had many conversations where she will say to me, Mom, please let me, I want to know, I want to be informed. But I am trying to be aware of that and her age now, right, older now. But when she was younger, when she already had so many other stressors, and she watched her father, recover from brain surgery in the house, and her brother who has special needs, and there was a lot on her plate, and we had therapists coming in and out of the house for occupational therapy and physical therapy. I couldn't bear telling her more than she needed to know. There was already too much on her head. Right. So you have to, is there a time frame, or okay, when they get to this age, I just told her, the basics, but kept it very generic so I didn't add to worry.
Well, I think you, even more so, what you want to do is stick with facts. There's a lot of time that if you think about what worry is all this unexpected stuff, right? Yeah. We know what the facts are, we share the facts. And I think that that's what we say to our kids. There is still the unknown, but here's the way that we're trying to make the unknown known. And these are the ways that we're trying to control for the outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of implies a sense of power. Every kid is different too. There is not an age. From a developmental standpoint, we need to recognize that kids can always comprehend, this information. I mean, literally your frontal lobe doesn't develop really until you're in your, beginning, well, it's not really fully developed until you're 20, 21, 22. Yeah. So you're asking these guys to understand something that's really, really profound. Yeah. And so I think you want to go at whatever level of intellect they sort of, and cognitive skill set that they have for you. But at the end of the day, you're talking about their parent, their loved one. That emotion center of their brain's going to sit on top of the understanding piece. And so you just say, here's what we're doing. Here's these facts. Yep. This is what we know. I'll let you know if something changes. Yeah. And I've got it. Yeah. We've got this.
Right. Show confidence. Yep. Right. You have to an extent.
Well, you show confidence in the plan. You know what I mean? And you're not, and you don't fake good.
Right. You can't show confidence like everything's gonna be fine. I'm positive.
And you don't lie to your kids. And that's the number one thing. And sometimes lying by omission is a thing. Okay. So kids sense that something's going on, and that's anything. Health problems, any other problems. Kids sense that there's financial problems. Kids have that sense, right? They know.
They see the stress. They sense it.
Right. Yeah. And so you don't want to tell them, we're good. Based on what? Because right now it's looking like we aren't good. Yeah. And so you want to give them at least enough where they can believe what you're saying. Okay. And you need to believe what you're saying before you talk to your kids. So I think that that's more so. And each kid is different. You could have a kid you have twins, same age, same developmental stage, and they may be able to handle things differently. So you just want to know your kids as you start to talk to them and respect them.
Valuable advice, though, that you can be confident in your plan and just show that you're doing what you can at this moment.
What my mother would always say to me is, there's no reason to worry right now.
That's good.
Or as of right now, there's no reason to think X. Yeah. Could it? Probability is there. Yeah. Possibility is there. It's a low probability. And that's always a worthwhile conversation is the difference between the two of those.
So for a real challenge, because our time is going so quickly here, what can we advise others, and also something that we try to follow ourselves for next week with regard to this topic, Julie?
So I think my take home right now would be, if we're being proactive, can you think about your health and the health of your loved ones, that there might be something that you're avoiding, to honor the women who have struggled with breast cancer, or even those who we are somehow connected with who have struggled? What can you do to be a proactive person related to your health and the health of your family this week?
Okay. Be brave, be bold, right? Because we need to be there for our families.
Be honest.
And be honest,
Be honest about what's in front of you.
If we don't take care of ourselves, we say it all the time, then how do we take care of the rest of our family?
Exactly. And why would they then take care of themselves? We need to be those models. Yeah. Always.
Setting the example.
Yeah.
Well, it's a hard thing being a parent, isn't it?
Sure is.
Yeah. Such a good conversation, Julie. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we'll be back next week. But for now, that's all we've got for The Real Deal. Make sure you tune in next week.